Bias can show up at any point in the hiring process, but it's especially powerful during interviews and candidate selection. Today, we will unpack how it works and why every HR professional must be proactive in recognizing, minimizing, and managing it. Before we look at specific examples, let's get grounded in the two categories of bias. Understanding these distinctions helps us recognize what we can immediately correct and what requires deeper awareness. Explicit bias is intentional and deliberate. Unconscious bias, however, is automatic, subtle, and often invisible. Both have real consequences in hiring. Explicit bias includes actions or statements that openly discriminate against individuals or groups. These behaviors are illegal and violate civil rights laws, yet they may still surface through outdated interview habits, inappropriate comments, or decisions grounded in personal prejudice. The good news is that explicit bias is easier to spot, and with strong policies and accountability measures, organizations can eliminate it from their hiring practices. Unconscious bias is trickier. These are the snap judgments our brains make without conscious awareness. They're shaped by culture, media, upbringing, and personal experiences. Even well-meaning, inclusive leaders are not immune. Because these biases operate beneath the surface, they can affect decisions before we have a chance to reflect. This is why intentional, structured hiring practices are so important. Affinity bias, or similarity bias, happens when we naturally gravitate toward candidates who remind us of ourselves. Maybe they share our background, hobbies, communication style, or life experiences. While this feels comfortable, it narrows our perspective and can unintentionally exclude exceptional candidates who bring different strengths and insights. Affect heuristic describes those moments when emotions, not evidence, drive decision-making. A single detail, like cheering for the same sports team or disliking a candidate's name because of a past experience, can shape the entire evaluation without us realizing it. This bias feels subtle, but it can dramatically sway how we perceive a candidate's qualifications. The halo effect happens when one positive trait creates an overall impression that overshadows everything else. For example, a candidate who carries themselves confidently may come across as competent in every area before we've assessed their skills. This can lead us to overlook gaps simply because their first impression was strong. The horn effect is the opposite. One perceived negative trait influences our entire perception. It could be something as irrelevant as a tattoo, a nervous habit, or a communication style that differs from our own. When this happens, we risk dismissing a qualified candidate based on something that has nothing to do with job performance. The availability heuristic kicks in when we rely too heavily on the most vivid or memorable detail. A candidate's wrinkled shirt, a typo, or even an awkward greeting may stick in our mind disproportionately, overshadowing a strong resume or impressive skills. This bias reminds us that what stands out isn't always what matters most. Distance bias is becoming increasingly relevant in remote and hybrid workplaces. We tend to favor people who feel closer, geographically, personally, or relationally. That might mean selecting a local candidate simply because it feels easier, even when another applicant, who lives farther away, is more qualified. This bias limits the reach of our talent pool and can undermine equitable hiring practices. Bias, especially when it's unconscious, can shape decisions in ways that keep organizations from hiring the best talent. It can push out incredible candidates and unintentionally reinforce inequities. By naming these biases, understanding how they show up, and building systems to counteract them, we create a hiring process that is fair, consistent, and deeply aligned with our commitment to diversity and excellence.